Good evening and welcome to Plain Talk. This is our first program for the year 2018. Let me take this opportunity to wish you a successful and prosperous year as we move into a number of important activities, including local government elections in this year. We've got issues like the appointment of a chancellor. We've got the resolution, apparent resolution of the sugar industry. We got a number of issues, but for tonight, what I will do with two very prominent guests coming from different perspectives, Mr. Lincoln Lewis, trade unionist and a prolific writer on constitutional matters, Mr. Ramon Gaskin, an equally prolific commentator on a range of economic, social, and political issues. Gentlemen, in welcoming you, I'd also like to take this opportunity to wish you a successful 2018.
Thank you for that.
Let me start by asking you, I'm sorry viewers, we had a slight technical problem there. Let me start by asking you, if you were to identify the critical points in 2018, points or events in 2018, from your perspective, Lincoln, what would they be?
From labor perspective, as a trade unionist, what is critical to me is the whole issue of collective bargaining in this country. In the public sector primarily, how it has been, how the employer is treated with the public service, the teaching service, the sugar industry, and in the private sector, the private public sector, the bauxite company of Guyana Incorporated that is managed by Rusal. Those are the four areas of really concern to myself and to labor. We do not believe that the handling of the public service on the issues of increased wages and better working conditions, that the government as the employer has ever engaged the trade union with any intent of having an arrangement that involves all the rudiments of collective bargaining. Just the same with the teachers, and because what is absent there is the whole question of responding to proposals and to sit at the table as equals across the table and discuss the issues. When it comes to the sugar industry, we don't believe that from labor's perspective, the way they have treated with sugar, by not engaging GAU and NASI as principal stakeholders in the industry representing workers, we don't believe that it has been properly handled. And on the question of BCGI, Rusal, we still believe that honestly believe that the government continue to play games, run around just the same as how the PPP run around with it. Nobody wants to tell these people who have come to this country breaching our sovereignty that it is time they respect Guyanese and Guyana laws and constitution.
Quite a handful there, Lincoln, and we'll get back to those. I wonder, Raymond, if you could identify what in your view were the critical points in the country in 2017.
Well, when I think about 2017, first of all, I would have to say that the economy has been in decline, and many people have been feeling the squeeze for 2017. The economy did not perform. That's a major issue. Then, of course, we have the problem of Gaisuko that Lincoln talks about, the whole plan to close down this company and to put thousands of people on the breadline. And, of course, 2017 was characterized by the whole charade and farce about the selection of the GCOM chairman, which eventually was selected, and all the news about oil coming in 2020. Those, I think, were the dominant issues in 2017. And it is true that the trade union movement did not do well in 2017, in my opinion, because, as Lincoln said, at the public servants, you have this imposition of wages, and still the teachers didn't get anything there, notwithstanding their agitation for betterment, and we still have the problem with the bauxite workers, and so on. So the trade unionism was in trouble in 2017. But those were the critical areas, I would say: the economy, the GCOM, the oil coming, Gaisuko, and the decline of trade unionism in the country. That's what happened in 2017.
Would you identify governance as a separate heading, or does that transcend all of this?
No, governance is not a separate heading. We've had a lot of problems with governance in 2017.
But that's what I'm asking you. You didn't mention that.
No, I didn't mention it. Well, it's in my list. I have a long list. But governance is an important issue. We see the whole cavalier attitude towards the Constitution on the question of 161 and so on.
161 being the appointment of the GCOM
chairman. The question of SARA, I believe, and many people believe, a lot of the parts of that legislation is unconstitutional. We had problems with there's no public service commission here in place. There's no teaching service commission in place. All these agencies, they've come to the end of their term and they've not been reappointed.
And those are constitutional bodies.
Very important agencies. And it tells you something, in my opinion, about the attitude of the government towards these issues. Very disappointing that you don't have. Even the Trade Union Recognition Board, his life came to an end, it hasn't been reappointed.
Is that correct, Lincoln?
Yes.
Yeah, Lincoln is a member. And then the Integrity Commission hasn't been done. You know, that is ridiculous. And the government, they don't pay, they don't lose any sleep over it. They don't think it's a big problem, but it is a problem. That you don't have a teaching service commission and a police service commission and on and on and on. It's ridiculous.
Of all those issues that you mentioned, which you think would be, is it because of this Exxon contract came up at most recent? Where does that rank in terms of critical significance?
Let me make the point to you. That contract has already been put in place. It has been signed. From my perspective, my vantage point.
As a trade unionist?
Yes, as a trade unionist. And understanding how these things happen. The society was not brought along prior to the signing of the contract as to what the nation will need. The contract has now been signed.
That was signed in 2016.
Right.
16, yes.
Right? What I'm saying, we were not brought along prior to the signing of the contract. The release of the contract now, I've observed that we are still dissecting it. I believe, I want to tell you what I believe. I believe that what needs to be done here is to look at not only the weaknesses, but what is in the contract and how we can hold the people who administer this contract accountable. The issue of renegotiating, it need to be examined and explored. But let me say to you that is not a big issue here. That is not a big issue. The big issue here is how you treat with people and people's business. The big issue
is a governance issue.
Yes, yes, that is it. all this constitutional commission that Raymond highlighted there, I've written about them before, right? These things are important in the day-to-day life of the society. These things are not there by accident. Let me say to you, a teacher who is 52 years of age and is a senior mistress or a senior master and has applied to become a deputy headmaster or a deputy headmistress. In the absence of this commission, that person will not be promoted.
That's correct.
Right? And that person may go into retirement, right? As a senior master or senior mistress because they were not appointed. It is not because of the person's fault. It is because of the administration fault. Those people who are tasked with the responsibility to appoint these commissions, right? So, all in all, what I'm saying here is that these commissions are more important. The issue of governance is more important than the question of the Exxon contract that is made a big story. We release it. Let me hear what people want to say about it. But that's not it. Rights and the rule of law are paramount in society. And if my rights, what is happening here now, is that we are not appointing this the Public Service Commission, the Treating Service Commission, and so forth. You are denying persons their rights in their respective job areas. If the police too, in their respective areas, the right.
There's no Police Service Commission in place.
To be promoted, to pursue their career path in the in their.
Why is there not a greater outcry about these clear omissions, which is a kind word, violation
of the Constitution. Violation.
I'm being very diplomatic, remember.
Yeah, violation of the Constitution.
Why is there not a greater outcry?
Outcry from who we're speaking on it tonight. Other people have spoken, but that's what you have here, and there's no excuse for it. You don't have a Police Service Commission. I read in the papers today that a senior officer was arrested in Burby. So the minister is calling for his dismissal. Doesn't this guy have a right to be heard? He hasn't been charged with an offense. And the minister, who's responsible, we're told, politically for the police.
And who's a lawyer?
Who's a lawyer? Said, dismiss this man. This man is entitled to be heard. He's entitled to a fair trial. That's the constitution of this country. He's entitled to a trial before an independent tribunal if indeed he has committed an offense. And here the minister carrying on to dismiss this man. I think it's ridiculous, and it tells you something about the quality of leadership in this place, that a political minister who is a trained lawyer could speak like that.
You know, it's interesting that you mention that minister, because I made a note which we didn't highlight as an issue, the total destruction of the Camp Street prison.
Oh yeah,
the second major conflagration in less than 2 years.
That's correct.
Under a single minister.
Yes.
This is unprecedented. Even one is unprecedented.
That's correct.
And yet he has not been sanctioned.
That's correct.
There has been no call by labor, by civil society, well, I think certain people have, for a commission of inquiry. Here we've got hundreds of millions of dollars lost.
We have lives
lost in the previous one.
Yes.
18 persons whose lives lost.
Yes.
And not a single person held responsible.
Well, we had a big commission of inquiry, the slow commission. But you don't have one today.
Yes.
You need that. But coming back to this question of governance issue, we see it in the Exxon agreements. The first agreement signed by Janet Jagan, President, 1999, totally secret for 17 years or 18 years. Nobody knew about this thing. Eventually we got to hear there was some agreement signed by Janet Jagan as President. Now we have a renegotiated agreement signed in 2016 by the President Minister. Secret again. You can't get to see this thing. And when it is released with a lot of fanfare, half of the documentation has not been released. Appendix A, B, C, D, and the
bridging deed.
And the bridging deed. Up to now haven't been released for people to study this document, and they keep saying they've released it. They have not released the full documentation on this renegotiated agreement, so people could read and study what's going on in this place. And there, I must tell you, and that you're probably aware of this because you've been writing every week about it. There are big changes between the 1999 agreement signed by Janet Jagan as president. That's the one with Sam Hines and Jagdi and all of them. And this one here, signed by Truckman and a whole set of people. And it tells you a lot about both of them, both of these parties. The secrecy. They don't want you to know. And this is public business. This is people's business. This question of exploration and exploitation of the natural resources of this country. And they keep it as a secret. They keep it their personal and private business. Similarly, all the agreements with Bai Shanlin and with the Rusal agreement and Bosai, we want to read and study all these things. We're not getting it out of these people. You're not getting it out of these sets here, or you're not getting it out of the previous set. So that's what you have here. That's what you have in this
Lincoln,
country.
you started your highlighting the issues for you. Collective bargaining. Wasn't that issue dealt with since in the late 70s?
Yes. We have. Let me tell you, the trade union, in the 1970s, you have had centralized collective bargaining, where the TUC bargained,
yes,
for, right, and they set the parameters and what have you. The trade unions said that they want to go back to the table where individually they can bargain.
Yes.
And they can bargain and establish the parameters.
But we're not only talking about government, you know, we're talking generally.
Yeah. I'm talking general.
Yes, okay,
right?
good. Thanks.
We have gone to that extent because what the private sector has been doing, even at that time, is using the benchmarks that are established by the
public sector,
as the parameters for them to negotiate within the private sector, these companies. That have been doing. So unions have been asking to return to that. This present group that forms the government, when they were in opposition, they said they will return collective bargaining. They are not going to do what Jack Dio was doing. Jack Dio was imposing wages over a period. But I'll tell you something, when the PPP was in opposition, they were saying that centralized bargaining, and they will free up, they will engage on collective bargaining draw. Everybody when they're in opposition, they get everything right.
Yeah, tell you the government.
When people go and come to
the
power,
government, yeah, the completely different story. Yeah,
it's a different story.
I'll take
right?
it. Yeah.
But I tell you what, what is important in this whole process is that collective bargaining is a process which involves a number of things. But the issue here is about people's rights. The bauxite workers decided that they are at BCGI decided which union going to be of their choice. The Trade Union Recognition Board is the agency that recognizes a union.
Yes.
Right? The Trade Union Recognition Board is the agency
by law
that if the workers don't want that union, they go through a process and they de-recognizes.
Yes.
You have a set of Russians who come here and say they de-recognize a union.
Yes, correct.
Right? The APNU AFC in opposition said they're wrong, they will correct it. Right? They come to office and they did nothing about it. It reached to a point where they said they want a poll because basically, I believe quietly they were saying we'll get rid of this union. And when they got to the poll, when they brought a union that has no bargaining rights anywhere, they find that union and put it there. The incumbent union get 93% of the votes, right? When they're finished now, They're spinning all around the place. Nobody wants to deal with it. The government said in last 2 years ago, 2016, that we're going to give the tax-free overtime and premium pay, tax-free on overtime and premium, right? And they said to them, you will sign this document, you and the recognized union and so forth. And they refused to sign in 2016. They have now come full circle. In 2017, you have had the poll. And what they did after, they came and they signed the document. Rather than the ministry, the minister called them in front of the union and said, sign this document. You know what they do? Call them behind the union back and get into, and they signed the document. Right? And when they finished now, they said, the Commissioner of Inland Revenue said, you will pay all the monies, all the taxes deducted in 20s for over a period of time back to the workers forthwith. And you know what they did? They refused to do so. And while they refused to do so, these people come from Russia. This government telling them what to do, and they said they ain't going to do it. Right? Here when they're telling me now, the union got to take action. The decision is their decision. They took a decision what they're going to do. And while they took that decision, what they're failing to do is to follow through to make sure that the employer, the Russians, respect their decision. They put it, they say no. The union must take action. It is not a union decision.
But the government got the money. But the government got the workers' money.
The issue here is them and the management of the company got to work it out. Because the decision, the union can't say give them. The union can't activate any process to remove taxes or to pay taxes between the two of them. And nobody wants to make the decision. Here again, where our sovereignty is being challenged. We're talking about Venezuela, where Venezuela is claiming a part of this country, and we're standing up to say that our sovereignty is being challenged. But the Russians, they're right inside there. If we can't do nothing about the Russians, what do you believe we can tell anybody about sovereignty?
Ramon, you wanted to say, I noticed you...
But you see, the Trade Union Recognition Board, which is set up by law, by Parliament, to deal with some of these things about recognition and derecognition and all of that. That board doesn't exist. The term of the board has come to an end. It hasn't been reappointed. There's no such board in place now. That tells you a lot about how the importance that government attaches to these things. There is no board in place.
In fact, there is also no Minister of Labour.
There's no Minister of Labour. There's somebody who...
For the first time...
since pre-colonial times. But the money that has been deducted from the workers improperly in contravention of some arrangement that was extant there has been turned over to the GRA. The GRA got the money. There's $173 million, I understand. And the GRA must return it to the workers after verification. Because the GRA has the money, and the Russians would say, we deducted the money, we deducted it improperly, we turn it over to GRA, they got the money. Go there and see if you could get your money.
Right.
That's what's happening.
We've spent some time
a lot of jerking around here.
The economy. You mentioned that an issue of the economy. We started last year's budget with quite a number of tax changes, including VAT and education, which created a huge hue and cry. How's the economy?
The economy in 2017 didn't perform at all.
Well, there was growth in real GDP.
I don't know anything about that, to tell the truth.
The official statistics indicate
I don't read official statistics all the time. But
you can't challenge unless you have a basis for challenging the official statistics.
Because I really don't look at it like that. The economy did not perform well. It has to do with the fact that we know in Guyana, the way I look at it anyhow, that this country has two economies at the same time, the formal economy and the informal economy. I would never look at the Guyana economy without looking at it like that. The informal economy did not perform also. The people are holding back there. Those who are involved in a lot of funny activity. And in the formal economy, which is sugar, rice, and bauxite and all of that, they didn't do well. Sugar, we know, is not doing well. Rice did suffer some decline after the peak of 700,000 tons. Bauxite is being produced. We get nothing out of it. We don't even get royalties. And now we see gold is being produced. Gold is being sold and some of it being smuggled. That's what you got here, really. That's what you got. A lot of unemployment. The minister never gives the number in his budget, but we know there's a lot of unemployment in the country. And there's no place you can go and you say where jobs are being created. There's a lot of jobs. We don't have that now that you could identify.
Is the public sector the main driver of jobs in the country?
Yes, that is the public sector is the driver of jobs, and to a great extent it is the driver of the economy too. Because the public sector now spent $20-something billion last year on construction and this and goods and services and all of that. And that's the main driver of the economy. That continues in 2018. But are there no jobs? But what you've had in the public, so you've had an additional 4,000 jobs that came in through contract labor, I say through the back door, because it didn't come through the constitutional arrangement, the Public Service Commission. So you got 4,000 jobs there, which are now being integrated into the regular public service there without the Public Service Commission in place. So now those 4,000 people who came in through the back door are being regularized now that there's no Public Service Commission in place. So that's what you have. You have 4,000 people there. And a couple thousand more in the police and the army and the people's militia and all that. That's where the jobs have been.
Well, let me
What's Labour's view of the economy?
Let me tell you something now. We do not believe in the factors that are placed there to measure development, growth in this economy, and development in this country.
Well, GDP, real GDP is a different from development.
I'm going to tell you something. Development, as far as we're concerned, if this government has pronounced that they're establishing this green state, green economy, and what have you, then the question here about GDP is through the door, right? That can be the factor that measures.
Why is that?
Because
you can have
no, you
economic
can't
growth
have. You
in
can't
a
have.
green of course you can.
It is the question here of development is being determined through the human development index. The question of health, education, and so on is not question of balancing budget anymore.
No, I'm not talking about balancing
No, but
budget.
I am saying to you.
I'm talking about economic activity.
Hold on, I am saying, hold on, Chris. I hear you. I tell you that I don't believe in it. Let me give you an example. About 3 or 4 Fridays ago, we had what we had in this country. We had a big splash with the ILO, talking about the green jobs. And there was a nice presentation after survey. And I asked him one question. I tell the man who presented the survey, I said, I don't agree with you. I said, we're talking about green state. And this falls within the purview of it. And this whole question here, this thing here about the factors that are used to determine why you are the conclusion of this are not what are applicable to a green state. He said, well, I agree with you. I said, well, how is it that you're doing what you're doing here is within the confines of the green state and green economy, but the factors that you're using are not synonymous with what ought to exist. And he said, well, they haven't changed it as yet. I am saying you can't ride 2 horses at the same time. You got to ride one. Let me tell you what.
But
this,
you can be transitioning.
No, this is not transition.
No, you can.
I want to tell you something, Chris. Chris, here's something. Here. Don't tell me about transition. You know why? I want to tell you, I want you to understand this, Chris. You can't be beating iron, right? And using what silver is being used, what is being used to make a ring out of silver. Can't do it. You gotta be one or the two. You either remain where you are with the old instruments, the old factors to determine what the economy the economic performance, or you move to what the green economy is about. And I will tell you something, the green economy, I don't believe in what Mr. Jordan is saying. The green economy, we want to see, let me tell you something, the green economy, how we going to improve, when they improve the performance of Georgetown Hospital, New Amsterdam Hospital, the Psychiatrist Hospital in New Amsterdam, the West Demara Hospital, right? We want to know more about how you improve on education. When we have improvement in those areas, that is what we see as development. We don't see...
No, but are we conflating development and green economy?
I am saying to you, the green economy talks about those things. Like I'm going to carry through the school, right?
No, you're losing me. No.
You're not losing.
Hold on.
I got to be losing you.
Hold on.
I got to be... Raymond,
okay, Raymond, join in.
I think this talk about the green economy, we've had that talk before with President Jagdeo when he was president. He used to call it low carbon.
Yes.
The low carbon is an element.
Let him finish the please.
Low carbon was supposed to be green. They call it green. Jagdeo became champion of the earth. Soon Mr. Granger is going to get the champion of the earth thing. A lot of it is propaganda. When we had the low carbon thing, we were trying to control the deforestation in the forest. We're supposed to get $250 million US out of Norway. We can't see where this money is and how it affects and help anybody in this country. A lot of it is propaganda. I don't believe any of it. I don't believe this government is embarked on any green economy.
Yeah, well, tell us what you think. We're talking to viewers. What is a green economy in your view?
What is a green economy in my view? What is a green economy in my view? A green economy in my view has to do essentially with, not necessarily with health and all that, with renewable energy, with things like that, renewable energy, saving the forests and all those things that the environmentalists and the conservationists, that's a green economy. Saving the forest, saving on fossil fuels, renewable energy, and that's what a green economy is all about. But that is not being done here, although the politicians talk about it all the time. And you've seen the budget. The budget is $267 billion, and how much of it has been allocated for, say, solar panels? And that is green economy thing. The only green economy is seen is green paint. The only thing I see for this green economy is green paint in the city. I don't see anything else. No, I don't see a single solar panel nowhere in the place on $267 billion.
There have been incentives introduced in the 2017 and 2018 budgets.
Incentives, yes.
For the importation,
yes,
and use of
so why don't the government
energy
put the panel on top of the government buildings instead of the paint? If you want to do renewable energy and you want to do a green economy, the government itself doesn't understand what green economy is. They peddle a lot of propaganda all the time. They think green economy is green paint. It is not. And they don't allocate the money to do things for the green economy, for the greening of the economy. They don't. If you look at all, you talk about fossil fuels, what they use. They use the biggest gas guzzlers in this country here.
Yes.
You talk about the Prados and the Range Rovers. These guys talk a lot about green economy. They would never drive a Corolla. They drive the biggest guzzlers that use the most fossil fuel. I don't believe they know what they're talking about, and it's sheer propaganda, and I don't believe any of them. Let me tell you straight.
But Raymond, it's not question about only belief. What you're saying there is an element of it.
But we see
when I talk about it,
because I see that they're not doing it.
I am talking from the standpoint of the people force.
You talk about development, but that's a
I am saying to you, Chris, the question here, whenever the measurements are done, is about people.
Yeah, but the green economy, Lincoln, we took away all the concessions from Barama to chop down the forest. We give it to Rangon. I mean, you got Baishalin and all these people, Vaitana, chopping down the forest all the time. So you talk about green economies, and when you invite all these foreign capital to come and chop down the forest, and you're still talking about green. And Jagdeo too, he's talking about green, and the Norwegians complain about it, talking about green economy and low carbon, and give the whole forest to Baishalin to cut it down, and Vaitana and Rangon and Rangoff and all these people. And they're talking about green. It's propaganda, and I don't want to say it's lies, but it comes close to being dishonest in politics, dishonesty in politics.
There are some elements in this green economy.
The green paint, you mean?
Labor policies, which are grounded in the ILO core labor standards.
Yeah, but in development,
right?
In development, you conflate.
I am saying I am not conflating. I am not conflating.
You're conflating.
I am not.
Two separate issues.
No, I am
development and the green economy.
No, but I am saying I am saying to you, if you are going to talk about development, something has to guide development.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I'm saying, all that I'm saying
that?
to you, something has to guide development. I am saying that the instruments that are used to measure development, I do not believe in them.
Which measures you're talking about?
The measurements that the budget that are being used in the budget.
Nobody says.
Right? I am saying to you that when you talk that you are 3% growth or 4% growth, we are see from a labor perspective, we don't see growth in that light. Growth is not in that light.
Well, growth,
we see growth as when people, how it impact on people, people.
Human development
index. That's what we're talking about.
No problem, but in terms of economic growth, when we talk about real GDP, and we don't differ in lots of issues, but let's be honest about it. When we talk about growth in real GDP, it simply means the value of goods and services produced in an economy. That's all it means. It is nothing about development.
Well, all that I am saying to you, listen to what I'm saying to you.
I'm hearing you.
What the value reflect on the man there? That is what important to me.
The reason why it doesn't reflect or impact positively there, the growth figure, is because this economy, much of it is dominated and dictated by foreign capital. So when the bauxite, people ship the bauxite to Rusal and those, it's in the GDP here. And troy resources and
all will
come next on too.
That comes within GDP. All is shipped out.
All the
time.
I see in the papers that the GDP will increase by 38.5% in year one. When you add up all this oil and all, but it means nothing. Similarly, all the bauxite shipped, 1.8 million ton of bauxite shipped out of the country. It's all, and the gold had gone to gold fields and the gold had gone to Troy. It's all in the GDP.
And maybe just create a few jobs, which is what
that's all you get. That's all you get.
Yes.
That's all you get.
Yeah, well, always saying that there's this, and it's a measure. You see, it's interesting how GDP is measured in some countries, or how economic activity is measured. In the US, they use GNP.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because ExxonMobil production will be counted here as GDP of Guyana and counted in America as GNP.
Yeah. You see,
because it's part of the production, gross production by nationals.
But you see, in America, nobody goes to America or China or Russia and fetches away the natural resources and still counted it. But in this country here, because we still have this colonial type of economy, they can come here, fetch away all this thing, carry it out of the place, pay nothing for it, and count that you had 3% growth and 5% growth and all this. And the prediction is that in the first year of oil, we'll have a 38.5% growth. I read it somewhere. It all means nothing. It all means nothing, because as Lincoln was talking about, when you go to the health services and the hospitals and the schools and so on, you see that there's nothing there. No growth, no improvement, no development. Poverty all the time. Poverty, unemployment, homelessness. That's what you have there. Are you talking about growth? You're talking about growth because you're measuring something that makes no sense.
Do you think then, and we talk generally, politicians across the spectrum, we use the wrong measure in evaluating our economy and our people? And if you think it's not, what should we have? Anyone of you?
Well, the people we have here who measuring things and running the economy and the ministry, they've been trained like that. They've trained
so assuming
like
that's
that.
wrong, so what do we do?
And they can't do otherwise. And Jagdo himself, who started off his training in communist economics, then he switched over to Samuelson. He himself got caught up in all this confusion and nonsense about growth rate. You can't change that now. That's how they train to think that that's growth.
Yes, but what
But
do
we talking here, we talking about development of people and satisfying needs of people. It's quite different, quite different. When I talk about an economy progressing and doing well, I'm talking about how well do you satisfy the needs of the people? Food, housing, shelter, security, transportation, all of that, education and health, that's development.
So you're talking about a human development index.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. That's what I talk about.
Which is not inconsistent, but it's a different measure.
It's a different measure,
Yes,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
You Lincoln.
and we have to insist on that. When we measure growth and development, we talk about people. And Lincoln is right. We can't say but this percentage and that, but that means absolutely nothing. We talk about people, education, the dropout rate, education, the health, maternity, mortality. That's what we're talking about. That's development. Maternal mortality, infant mortality, and all of that. That's development. That's what they talk about. But you can't expect different from them because they're trained like that. They're trained by the World Bank and they're trained by the IMF, and that's the kind of bogus economics we get all the time. All the nonsense they train in Washington. Ignorance we get.
Let me make this point to you, Chris. We are in a vortex right now. Our culture over the years, as a culture as a people, our live experience has brought us to this point where it is difficult to do anything beside what we're doing here right now to bring about the change that we would like to see.
Where is that?
I want to tell you that
Where is that?
we live in a garrison world here in this country. Our decisions are too centered, influenced and centered by
Foreign.
race in the first instance. And this idea where we walk around and give the notion that the private sector is the engine of
Well,
growth.
that's
just
poppycock.
right?
Uh-huh.
Let me tell you this. Earlier, Raymond talked about what the public sector has done. You see, let me give you a quick example of something. You see that bonus that was given to public servants.
And the army and so
Army
that
and so
Granger
on.
took away.
You believe, you don't know what it did to this economy. The one, when you put it in, it increased the spending and it moved the economy. To take out all that money from it as reduce the revolutions in the economy. Reduce it significantly.
Yet
Yeah,
there
we've come
was
to a point.
somebody's got to put some balance on. I've spoken to lots of business people, and they've said they were amazed on the spending in the second half of the month of December.
Well,
Many people
while
said
they
that.
were amazed, ask yourself who
Where the money come from?
there's a story.
But where did it come from
A
before?
lot of it Western Union. But the payroll here in this country now, I think we looked at it the other day. The state payroll is about $60 billion now. So 1 month of it, roughly as a bonus, is $5 billion put into the spending. So we have a big state payroll. And I think in the withdrawal of it for the Christmas must have affected some people. But that's not the critical thing here.
I'm not saying that the withdrawal of it only. I am saying to you that money in itself being put there helped to
The multiply effect, yes.
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
The multiply
But
effect. It has an impact.
What
yes.
has happened if you read what the minister was saying? For the first half of the year, they had only 30-something% performance on the PSIP, and from the second half of the year, they had to push hard to get the money out and get it spent to stimulate the economy. Some of that happened in the second half of 27 and towards the end of the year. And the first half of the year, nothing was done much.
Lincoln raised this important issue, this elephant in the room that people don't like to recognize.
Which is?
This question of race. Ramon Gaskin thinks a lot of our problems are due to foreign capital.
Yes.
There are others who will tell you lots of our problems are due to the bifurcated nature of our society and our failure, despite Ministry of Social Cohesion and all. What has happened? Why this failure? Why on a change of government it seems all you're doing is recycling?
You mean why the present government has not been able to achieve greater cohesion among the people?
Yes.
First of all,
well, Lincoln said it's not happening, so it's not I said that.
It's not happening. But the present government, like the previous government, is trying to satisfy the needs of some of their supporters. In the previous administration, and the Minister of Agriculture told me, he said, we've ensured that not a single worker in Gaisuko was laid off out of the 17,700. And it cost them $1 billion a month to do that. It cost the Treasury in the previous administration. Here now, the present government is not spending that kind of money to support that payroll, that workforce of 17,700 in the sugar industry. They've taken another 4,000 or 5,000 people and put them in the army, the police, and the public service. For they have their priorities too. A lot of it appears to be ethnic. It appears to be ethnic on the face of it, but it's not really ethnic.
What is it?
It is. You come into power. You support. You're trying to help your supporters that put you there to begin with. You owe them. You owe them. They support you. There's very good reason why they support you, and there's good reason reciprocally why you ought to support them. The same thing happens.
But does not propagate and promote this business of the bifurcation?
It doesn't help. It doesn't, because the economy is not performing enough to deal with all the needs of all the people. So to that extent, it's not helping, because the economy is not able to do it. But if the economy was able to do that, to help all of those people supporting all these big parties, we wouldn't have that problem.
But in almost every society, almost every economy, the demands of the people exceed the capacity of the economy to meet their expectations.
But in this particular society, because of the way the communities are structured, you talk about it, the government is putting a lot of money into the hinterland community. If you read the budget speech, and they talk about region 7, 8, and 9, that's where they're concentrating to win votes, and that's how politics works in this country. They're putting a lot of money into 7, 8, and 9, and trying to see what they can do with their other people. In the meanwhile, they'll have to neglect those in region 5 and 6 and 3. And same thing the other set did. The same thing there, because of the pressure from the supporters, and the economy is not performing. If the economy were performing, you wouldn't have this kind of rivalry and this struggle for a livelihood, for a job. That's what you have.
I want to ask you this. Hold on, let me. I want to ask you this. Our economy, in terms of spending, has been increasing every year. Every single year.
And borrowing.
Yes, it's financed by borrowing.
All the time. Spending more, borrowing more. So that
there are more resources available, even though the economy itself may not be meeting the needs. Borrowings are doing it. So you borrow for crime, this,
everything,
you borrow for everything.
Everything.
Whether it's India, it's China, it's Canada, Brazil.
Except for the Prados. There's no foreign loan for Prado, but they buy them all the time. Go ahead.
Well, money is fungible. So you spend your money on Prados and you borrow. Is it that our allocation of the resources is what is at fault? For example, the drug bond, the Durban Park project, where you spend a mile in the PPP government. They
Waste all the
they
time.
waste.
all the time. Waste all the time.
So it is not just that the economy is not performing.
But the people who are managing the economy, they're mismanaging what is there. There's a low-wage economy, low production, low productivity, low technology, but everybody happy to keep a large army of people poorly paid, no technology, low productivity, low efficiency, and poor service to the people. That's what you have here. And we've had that thing for the last, I would say, 30, 40 years.
Okay, let me give Lincoln, he's gone a little bit silent. Lincoln, you said social cohesion is not working. Why do you think it's not working?
Because they don't know, they don't understand what social
Social cohesion, they don't understand, you're
That's
right.
the story.
They don't have a clue.
understand.
They don't have a clue with social cohesion.
You can't tell the minister.
I want to
Yeah,
tell
you
you
can tell them.
something.
They don't have a clue.
You know, here's something. Social cohesion for these people mean that if you're an Indian man, you must throw away your culture. If you're an African man, black man, African man, you must throw away your culture. That is not what social cohesion. You understand me? I'm an Indian man. You must throw away your Amerindian culture. That is not what the thing is about. They don't understand the thing in the first instance. And I will tell you something. I do not believe, honestly, I do not believe that there is any honest intention of making it work.
So just satisfying the base? Like
It's
Trump?
just no, it's
satisfying
not
the
just
base and looking
getting
after
it.
foreign capital. No. While you're trying to satisfy your base, the people who really benefiting from this economy is foreign capital. Buy Chanel and
this-
Gusal.
All right, let's hear it. Okay, Raymond. Okay, hold on.
This is not
Let finish,
it's not
please. Let finish,
satisfying base, you know.
Is what?
This air is about hearing or something. It sounds nice. We embrace it. Seriously, you understand me? Let me give you an example. I have seen what they have written, what is considered to be a policy. You know what they consider to be a policy? All that they do is to tell you what this writer said, what that other writer said, what that professor said, what that... And there's nothing in it that's saying to you that A, B, C, D are the issues, and we are going to take
Deal
these
with
steps.
it, yes.
All right,
Right?
let's talk a little bit of politics.
Yeah.
Only this year, the AFC appointed a team, because we have a coalition government.
Yeah.
AFC appointed a team to review the Cummingsburg Accord. How has the coalition functioned? And we want to just spend 2 minutes on this issue. So let's be quick.
The coalition you're talking about, Ramchatan and Nagamut and all that?
Yeah.
They're pillion riders on Harman motorbike. They're going along for the ride. If you look at what they've been saying...
It's not an oversimplification.
No, I'm going to tell you now the facts. The Nagamutu and Ramchatan and they're total disasters. They're political hucksters and hustlers. They haven't done anything. They talk a lot when they were in opposition. Now they're in the government. They're not doing anything.
Well, we said that's true of all politicians. When in government, they're different.
No, but
what's your view of the coalition politics? And this reviewing the accord.
I just want you to understand that the accord need to be reviewed, and I hope that they will go in there with some strong position, new ideas.
The AFC will be going in with new position, a strong position.
I hope that they do.
No, they're hustlers. They ain't going nowhere.
Have they become stronger whilst in this government? Have they become stronger?
I believe that they're still wetting their feet.
No,
this is still your third year, Jeff.
They're
These are not little boys.
AFC got no support up
Ramchatan has
there.
been in parliament for decades.
I want to tell you this.
For more than a decade.
They have no support. What support they got?
I want to tell you this. This is not whether they are how long they've been there. It is that
no, you said they're wetting their feet.
They're wetting their feet.
In a coalition. Water, man.
No, they don't need water. They're wetting their feet.
Let
me tell you. Give me a chance, Raymond. Let me tell
you. We only got you got 30 seconds.
Let me tell you something.
We want to move on.
I will go to the WP and the FC and tell them what I would like to see them.
You or Labour?
I, as a citizen of this country, will go to them and tell them what I would like.
What would you like to see the AFC do then? 15 seconds.
I want to put it out again. I want to carry it again.
All right. Okay.
But the AFC,
Yeah.
they're a spent force. They have no use to anybody.
We're in the third year.
And the WPA, they're in the way out.
Raymond, we're in the third year. We have two sets of elections. You have local government elections, and then you'll be moving straight into the politics of the general
2020,
elections.
yeah.
What's the prospects?
What the prospect?
General political development.
Um,
What will elections bring about?
No, I don't know what the elections will bring about, but what I want to tell you, what I will prefer to see, I will prefer to see more groups in the local government election, more groups in communities get involved in the local government election. And secondly, I would want to see the addressing of the People's Representative Act, right? How we go to the national elections.
I'd like to see new parties in this, new political organizations in this system here to challenge the duopoly of the PNC and the PPP that have been ruling this country since the 50s.
You're using any inside information there, Raymond?
I'm not using any. I know that a lot of people are talking about new parties. I've talked about it myself. I'd like to see many new parties come on the stage to challenge these two big parties. The solution to this problem lies eventually in breaking up the duopoly of the PNC and the PPP.
But for the past 25 years, everybody's been saying that.
But the new party came, the AFC came, and then they joined. And then they joined. You have to get parties who don't want to join, who are not hustlers. You have to get new parties and leadership that are not hustlers and hucksters.
You can't call the WP as a set of hucksters and hustlers.
Well, I don't know what you'd call Rupner right now. I don't know where he is. But they're all hustlers and hucksters, especially when they get inside there. You give them the pride and the security, and they become hucksters and hustlers, and some of them become political prostitutes. You can't. I'm not talking about them kind of people. I'm talking about new political parties, people with integrity.
All right. Okay. Given the kind of constitution we have, the list system that you've got to compete in 6 out of 10 and 13 out of 25 seats, does our political system in fact encourage what you're talking about?
It doesn't encourage it, but for the time being, while it is there, you can still do it. The problem with the political system, I think, and you've raised it many times, it has to do with the financial contributions and all this money that is spent in the big parties. So you're not getting a level playing field for small parties to really make inroads into the system. And we need a lot of reform and political campaign reform too. If you want to talk about a democratic system of elections, you need all that to be done, and you need.
Well,
is that realistic? Given what's happening, is it realistic?
Not now.
When?
I don't know.
Well, I'm going to answer Lincoln right now, because when Critchlow started in 1926, right? A lot of people think it wasn't realistic in 26. But he started, and eventually we got some of it done. At the beginning, you couldn't see it in 1926, you couldn't see it what Critchlow was talking about.
1906.
And then he'd come back from Russia too. He'd been to see the Bolsheviks up there. You don't see it at the.
But that was a worldwide movement.
You don't see it, but you have to make the start. You don't see it, but you have to make the start. Make the effort. The Chinese said the longest journey starts with a single step. You have to make that single first step. Simple as that.
Gentlemen, Ramon Gaskin, Lincoln Lewis, thank you so much for this very interesting discussion on 2017. It's been quite informative, I hope, for the viewers. Next week, I'm trying to arrange a panel of women to review developments of women issues in 2017 and where we go from there. Until then, thank you and good night.